In the Yukon, Na-Cho Nyäk Dun First Nation and the Yukon Chamber of Mines are concerned with the territory's pending mining legislation. Last week, the First Nation rejected a draft framework of the legislation in a letter to Premier Mike Pemberton, and the Chamber announced its disapproval in a statement. Cabinet approval of the framework was scheduled for July 31. The government has not shared Cabinet's decision. The CBC's Marissa Meilleur has more.
A framework describes the guiding principles for the legislation being developed. The government of Yukon started working on this new legislation in 2021 with several First Nations. The Chamber was involved at the start, then wasn't for about 2 years. A spokesperson for the government says it was focused on working with First Nations at that time.
I would have liked to have seen the industry engaged earlier in the process, because now there's been expectations set that are going to be difficult to walk back from, I think.
Smith says the draft includes sweeping changes that would threaten the Yukon's ability to remain globally competitive. After months of requests, the Chamber says it only recently received a complete copy of the draft framework, and that the draft comes at a time when it can't consult with its members in the field.
I mean, I'm relatively confident that once we are at the table, we can start to try to fill in some of these gaps. But as it is right now, just based on the way the process has unfolded and what's on paper right now, we're just not in a position to support the framework as is.
The government of Yukon has the draft framework under embargo, which limits all parties' ability to speak about specific concerns.
This becomes very frustrating for us because it comes into conflict with the values and transparency of our citizens and our self-determination within our self-governance.
Na-Cho Nyäk Dun says it wants a full overhaul of Yukon's mining practices and says the government refused to make systemic change.
With the very minor changes that are being suggested within the framework, there's no confidence for us to be able to support and maintain our culture, our language, and our identity across the scape, and fulfill our obligations within that final agreement that supports that.
As it stands, Hope says they will not sign on to the legislation. She says Council still needs to discuss whether they will continue participating in the legislation's development. Na-Cho Nyäk Dun initiated a land use planning process with the territorial government last week. It warned the mining industry that stakes claimed on Na-Cho Nyäk Dun traditional territory are unwelcome throughout this process. In the meantime, Na-Cho Nyäk Dun has adopted its own mining policy. Marissa Meilleur, CBC News, Whitehorse.